So today what we're really here to kind of talk about is, like Alan said, we're going to pivot. And I want to take a moment to reflect on the big picture of all this. We came here to learn about a potential opportunity to get paid for the practices you're doing and for the good stewardship and land management that you guys are doing. But, I kind of think about it. I'm still very, very pro CI score and opportunity. I think it's out there. I really want to see it come to fruition. But I look at the big picture and I say, well, what if it doesn't? You're still doing good practices, and if you're doing them the right way, you're increasing your profitability and your resiliency. And we can all be proud of that. And so, this opportunity and many others, and it's a great time to be thinking about soil health if you're not doing it. And if you are doing those practices, there's a lot of money flowing into it right now. People want to see the environment improve through farming practices, so they're spending their tax dollars on that. And in Minnesota, we have 30 climate smart grants, all with funding for cost share available in Minnesota right now. On top of the federal funds from NRCS, from EQIP and CSP and CRP and programs like that. We're partnered with ADM. They have a cost share that we're working with them on for $10 an acre. There's lots of other ones out there too. Truterra is also here. You can talk to them about their program. And so it's a good time to take that money and use it to make the transition, right? De-risk it a little bit as you're trying a new practice and learning new management on your operations. And there's a ton of benefits that come with this, right? We see cleaner water. That's what Alan's data there is for. So we're holding our soil in place. We are storing carbon. We're, like I said, increasing resiliency and profitability on your operation. And the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition can help you on that journey, along with Clean River Partners, your soil and water conservation districts, NRCS. There's tons of people you can reach out to. But I am a fan of working farmer to farmer. Reach out to your neighbors. If you're here in a room full of people who are doing these practices, it's a great opportunity to network, find somebody that you want to work with, share ideas, work together to improve your operations. And that farmer to farmer, that mentoring, that coaching, learning from somebody who's already made a lot of these mistakes, and that's what we have this opportunity here to do with these guys who are gracious enough to come on stage and share their knowledge. And so take advantage of that. And if after this meeting you didn't find somebody but you want to, you can reach out to me. My contact info is in the folder, and we can try to help find somebody that you can work with. So with that, I'll go ahead and kind of let these guys introduce themselves.
Well, I'm Jerry Ackerman, of course, and I and my wife Nancy farm about 1,200 acres over in Jackson County, Lakefield, Minnesota. So if you went down I-90, you actually went by our place, because we farm both north and south side of I-90. We actually started cover crops earnestly in 2008. We tried it a couple of years before that without any luck because we didn't have anybody to talk to. I called the University of Minnesota, called down to Ames. They all said it wouldn't work, and then I kept reading about David Brandt and and a guy up in North Dakota, and I thought, well, if they can make it work up in North Dakota, we sure ought to be able to. And so we got started, and we've been doing it ever since. Our goal is to have a living root in the ground 365 days a year, or as close to that as possible. We do have a cover crop on every acre. We do interseed our corn, and we keep seeing some amazing things. I know one year everybody had tip back on our corn. I thought, we better go check that. And go check, we're filled clear to the tip. I'm thinking, well, what the heck is going on here? I talked to my agronomist, and he said, well, some of your fields have been in cover crops 8-10 years already. Maybe you're mineralizing more nitrogen than you realize. Or because you're interseeded, maybe it's cooler in there. And it really paid off. I mean, we're seeing that. We're controlling moisture. If it's a dry year, going to kill it earlier. Now this year, yes, we're getting a little moisture now, but in my area, it's dry about 10, 12 feet deep, I think. I have heard guys tiling, they aren't finding any water. So you're going to kill it early. 18 and 19, we got every acre planted, where all the farms around us, they had spots they left. Same way harvest. I mean, I've combined through standing water already. A little scary, but we got every acre combine when a lot of the farmers around us who are not using cover crops had areas that had big deep tire tracks, and there was a half acre over there and quarter acre over there. They had to come back after the ground froze up. So, you know, one thing I will say, we got a great organization with Minnesota Soil Health Coalition, because when I started, there was nobody to ask. I mean, I kind of learned it on my own. You talk about mistakes, I think I've made every one there is, but you learn from them. Luckily, with a group like this and a coalition, if you got a problem, there's a list, somebody you can call, or, you know, talk to Mark. He'll say, well, try to talk so-and-so. They've done this and done that, made it work. And no two people are going to do it the same. So with that, I'll pass it on.
Is this mic working, or do I need this? Oh, all right. Hi, Pete Cromer from Western Sibley County, north of Gibbon, Minnesota. I've been strip tilling for 20 years now, and no-tilling my beans for at least a decade now. And I've been toying around with cover crops mainly after my small grains for 17 or 18 years, not quite 20 years yet, but started in earnest about 2017 getting a cover crop on every acre, and I'm drilling that after the combine leaves the field. So, but right, I mean, you look at the people up here, these are people that started these practices well before the university even acknowledged that they're something they had to research or find out more information about. We've all had our shares of things that have gone right, pat ourselves on the back, almost break our arms doing that, and then put ready to go hide in the back 40 when something goes wrong right next to the major road going past your farm. So I guess my experiences are is this system takes a lot of management. But what I've found since I've gotten into this system is that I've had a lot more fun farming in the last 5 years than I did the 25 years previous to that. The challenges that you get, the things you get to tweak, the changes you get to see in your soil, some of the advantages that we heard about already. I guess my story I like to go to is in the spring of 2013, coming out of a very dry 2012, we had a very wet spring in our area. And I'm out there planting on my strip till corn in the middle of May when nobody else has turned a wheel. And the neighbor goes by really slow and almost stops and watches for 10 minutes, goes into town to coffee. And an hour and a half later, I had a procession of about 20 pickup trucks going by at about 10 miles an hour. I even heard one of those guys decide, he's farming, he's planting this corn, I'm gonna go out and work a field over lightly and see if it'll dry out so I can plant. And he drove off the grass in his yard, and the tractor got stuck with the field cultivator behind it. So that's, I don't know if it's true, that's what I heard a week later. But.
Good afternoon. My wife and I'm Tim Little. My wife and I farm north of Faribault. Currently run about 300 acres, and we have a trucking business. Started with the no-till. In 2013, we had a preventive plant. I had 40 acres that I wanted to do a tiling project on, and we couldn't get planted. It was really wet that spring. So we tiled that, pattern tiled that, I had Ellingsons up, and we got that leveled off fall of 13 through all of that rain. And I was a poster child of soil erosion because we got that project about half done, and some of that 40 is a little hilly, and we got 14 inches of rain in a couple hours. And I mean, I had washouts that you could drive a pickup down, and you didn't take the tile line out that we had installed, but they were showing in a few places. But the good news, that soil that got moved stayed on that 40. The bad news is it all landed on top of the 4 gas lines that go through the 40. So to work with a gas company and get silt carried back up. We got it all fixed. And Tom Kaufman was our conservationist at the time, and he said, boy, Tim, if you're ever going to try some cover crops, now would be the time. So we planted some annual rye, turnips, and some clover. And then, of course, after all that rain, then it turned dry that fall. And about the only thing that really came good was the turnips. But when I dug that 40 in the spring, because again, I had, you know how tile line settle in that, so I wanted to fix that. And we tilled it, but I could tell a difference in the way that ground tilled, and it was kind of a light bulb moment, like this soil is different. And that 40, and again, that was spring of 2014, and that's the last tillage that 40 has seen. Honest to God, the only blade that's been on that is my corn planter. And I used the same planter. I pull a 12 row Case IH 1200 pivot. And I've made some modifications, not a lot, but a few. Number one, I put row shutoffs on, seed savings, obviously. I put precision clean sweeps, so I can adjust the sweeps from the cab. That's made a huge difference because on our land, we're in kind of pothole country. And some of those draws in the side hills and whatnot aren't perfect when you're out there trying to no-till, and I've learned that I can just lift those trash wheels up. I try not to move any soil with them anyhow, but when I go through those dips, I raise them up so that the planter unit doesn't ball up with any mud, so that's been a huge improvement. And then I put, that used to be, that's 2001 corn planter, so I mean, it's old. But I put the airbags, took the springs off and put airbags on. Bought those used out of a guy down in Iowa that had put on Delta for us. And then 2 years ago, I put Case IH, if you're familiar with their closing, they've got a smooth concave disc for closing wheel. I took them off and put a sawtooth, almost reminds you of the trash wheels, but it's helped in those sticky spots that it's really made a difference. Don't have the any sidewall smear, and I think it helped give me a better stand. So it's helped with my main goal. If you're going to start cover crops, the main first thing is it's got to be in your heart. I think you got to believe in it, and you've got to go to some cover crop meetings with some really good speakers and take in all the information you can so you don't make the mistakes that some of us have made. But that information is now out there. And I also serve on the Soil and Water Board in Rice County. Every acre I run is Minnesota Water Quality certified. The programs that are out there right now, it's a really exciting time to be in conservation. I mean, goodness sakes, for the money that's out there, the different grants, and take advantage of it and use those programs. I'm going to close here, but I planted my first corn crop. Philip and I, my brother, rented where the Rice County landfill is in 1974. So this spring, I'm going to be planting my 50th corn crop. And I had, again, back to Tom Kaufman. I told him I was going to be talking to him about him today. His son is here somewhere. But when we were out building a waterway in the I think it was late 90s probably, he kicked the soil and there was swirls in between the corn rows. At that time, I was knifing in anhydrous in the fall, and I was seeing way too much erosion. That's what got me started no-tilling soybeans into corn stalks in 2005. But I got thinking about that. He said that's 5 ton per acre, that little swirl mark. Just the thickness of a dime on 1 square acre is 5 ton. This is my 50 years of planting corn. If I'm losing that little bitty dime each year, comes out to 2 5/8 inches of topsoil. So take climate out of the picture. take sustainability out of the picture, how can we keep farming like this where we're doing all this tillage and losing topsoil? Somebody down the road, whether it's my grandkids or their grandkids, somebody's not going to have any topsoil. So with that, I'll pass it on to Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. I just got to say that ethanol panel earlier, I hope we're half as good as them because that was one of the best panels I've seen in a long time. So thank you to those guys. But I'm Taunton Cotter. I'm right along I-90 down in Austin, Minnesota on the western edge. If you're driving along I-90 and you see green or cows, that's mine. It used to be about 3/4 of a mile. And now, thanks to a neighbor, Scott Lightly, now it's almost 2 miles of cover crops you see driving along I-90. And I've seen people stop in the middle of the winter time going, how the heck can that be green out there? And I started doing cover crops in 1998, so a little over 25 years now, and that's all we did was cover crops. And it was the back 40, and it was always the hidden one. And just kind of learned along, but I was in a tile, or a trench for digging tile lines, and that's how cover crops really got into our scenario of making it work. But after doing that for 10 years, and we didn't have anyone to talk to, there was no internet. Well, there was internet back then, but it was super slow. But I started realizing, okay, this is a really good thing. Let's do it on every acre. And then I met another group, networking. That's huge. That's one of the best things you can do. But then I got in with Freeborn Area Soil Team, TJ and Miles and all those guys. And then we started doing no-till and strip-till. And I dabbled with strip-till in 2013. Never had any luck because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but they gave me the confidence to start doing more and more. And I really like Mitchell this morning. He didn't start off with ethanol or money. He started off with the soil health principles. And you can do covers all you want, but that's just a tool in the toolbox. You got to add in the reduced tillage or really reduce disturbance because it's chemical and physical. And actually on my farm, I started realizing, okay, I'm going to reduce my tillage, but I also want to reduce my chemical. Now I'm 40% organic. Never planned on it. Don't like the high tillage, but I don't like the high chemical use on the other side either. And so really it's just taking the best of both programs and making it work on your farm. And then of course livestock integration, that got in there. I love that. That's one of my favorites. And also diversity. The diversity in your cover crops, the diversity in your cash crops. I can literally say that when corn gets really low, it doesn't bother me. I got cattle, they're all grass fed. All the covers in the world, they'll eat all of them. They don't have to eat corn. There's a premium on grass fed. There's a premium on diversity. It gives me more, I can do sunflowers, hemp, started a hemp company, CBD, just because I grew a ton of different plants, not just a corn and soybean plant. It's very hard for a corn soybean farmer to get in their head that I need to change this because we've been literally bombarded with advertising and this is the only way to do it. That's a bunch of bullshit. We can do a better job, period. I really like hearing you guys saying we can do it better. And I really like the ethanol plant because I don't want a handout for money. I just want to get paid for doing a better job and growing. It doesn't matter if it's tillage or chemical, diversity, better food products, better nutrition. We are definitely getting towards the end of our cycle as farmers because there's not a lot of life left in the soil. There's not a lot of healthy life left in our people. And so if we do a better job by what we're doing, and there is no right or wrong way, it's just make it work on your farm and do give it your honest attempt. Don't just, oh, that didn't work, I'm gonna quit and go back and do tillage. I do candy crops and I've had them all picking corn or peas in 2.5-inch rains. Oh, they rip up the fields. Guess what? No, they don't if you build structure in the soil and you have that roots in there holding it up. It's been just fine. So if you do all the practices, all the principles, not just the cover crop ones, all of them, be faithful and give it your best, you can do it. So that's it.
And you hit the nail on the head, doing a better job, right? We heard stories of resiliency here. We heard stories of holding our soil in place, our profit, our livelihoods, holding it where we want it. And Tom hit on another thing, nutrition, right? The food we grow using these practices, it's all about the biology in the soil, and that biology makes the the crop, the food we eat and the cattle eat and the hogs eat more nutritious, higher quality, and we should get paid for it. I mean, there should be a premium on that. It is a better quality product.
I will say I like it now because now I'm starting to see, and I've heard other people talk about this grant, and you know what? I like it when the companies come to me and say, hey, we want you to grow something. That's a really good feeling because now I get to say, well, I need so much money. I need so much, guarantee. And they will start doing it because they know that this all, just listen to Don. Oh, we've been on the CI stuff for 10 years. That blew me away. So are the food companies, so it's a good thing to jump onto.
We also heard diversity. That's a key part of it. Diversity is good for all of us in our operations because that's resiliency too, and that's something we've all known, but we moved towards a more specialized corn, soybean rotation, maybe specialized in something, but bringing that diversity back, bringing small grains back to the landscape is something we need to do in Minnesota. Iowa's doing a great job at it. North Dakota's doing a great job at it, and it's something we need to work on here in Minnesota. We're blessed that we have such a great state of innovators. We've got a state that, with the water quality program, that thinks that this could be better, and they're supporting it. And the kind of the next piece that we all want to work on is this markets, and I think we're moving in that direction. We're seeing a lot of interest from companies. We're hosting some field days at Tom's here later this year, where we're going to educate leaders of these food companies about these practices and why they're better. So, we're working in that general direction. But that diversity is a key piece to being successful with soil health. And I mean, maybe you want to speak a little bit more to that, somebody, but how did that diversity, that third crop, open up the ability to increase soil health in your farm?
Well, you get me started, I'll go forever. But no, diversity is just great because then you can plan. Even like, I said I'm organic. Oh, I do tillage. Well, guess what? If I have diversity, I can plant it right, so I can put that winter rye in September 1st. And then I have the capability of no-till crimping organic soybeans. There's just so much things. Every crop that I do, I make sure that it gives something to the next crop. And that can go with interseeding. I'm not planting soybeans this year. It's going to be all conventional sunflowers. I've done organic. Conventional's never been there on the money side, but now companies want this. But it also gives me possibilities. Okay, I can go interseed into those sunflowers, and when that's harvested, I can literally go out there and graze for 2 months on forage that I planted along with that cash crop. That diversity, everything you do, it gives to another one. And someone's talking about management. We're not playing checkers. We're playing chess. You have to think ahead and behind. And when you do that, it all just kind of starts feeding itself. I love a closed system. Organic got me into recycling nutrients. That's what we're doing. We're just cycling on nutrients with these cover crops, and we're not disturbing the soil so the biology can work properly. And that's why even with synthetics, I hate, on the CI score, I cut back on synthetics because that will get my CI score higher, which gives me more money in the long run. It's a win-win-win. I can't control much what I get when I get paid, but I can definitely control what I put into how much I spend. So it's been fun.
I guess I started on a third crop basically to put in tile. And to be honest with you, I started the strip till to ban fertilizer. I did not go into this thinking I'm going to save the world or the environment. But it was all based on economics. Banning fertilizer, you get higher efficiencies out of your fertilizer, you're spending less money on fertilizer. It's all about being competitive. And so I put the third crop in mainly as wheat, sometimes as oats or whatever, just to get some acres tiled on my own, because I never had time after harvest to get it done. But as I started running the numbers, maybe the wheat didn't make me a lot of money. I'd be happy if I broke even, but it gave me an opportunity to put in tile, see the cover crop right behind it, get some manure on it, and all of a sudden, you put a corn crop on that with less inputs that's giving you 10, 15, some years 20 bushels more than the rest of your acres. And then the following soybean crop, having another crop in between there, and also having the opportunity early on, like I said, I was just using cover crops behind the small grains, and seeing a 3 to 5 bushel bump there. You look at that 3-year rotation, and the money generated was some years only $20 an acre more. Sometimes it was $75 or $80 on that 3-year rotation. So it just shows that diversity really can make a difference. So I'd love to go a third. I haven't gotten there yet, but there's opportunities coming down the road with this push for carbon intensity stuff. Food companies looking now. So hopefully there's going to be opportunities to grow food grade oats here in Minnesota versus the companies buying it out of Canada. Growing crops that can bring some premium to you. So right out of the gate, you're more profitable on that crop besides the following crops. So all I see is a big exciting future here, hopefully, for where we're going.
I'll just add, I don't have a third crop. I'm in a corn soybean rotation. My third crop is the cover crops. And part of the reason for that, I guess, the last few years is it's been pretty hard to beat corn and soybeans with the prices, but now obviously we got to look at that differently. But I think it's just as important to remember the disturbance. I mean, it would be perfect to have the small grain, don't get me wrong. And better yet to have the cattle, but at my age I'm not going to start building fence, but somebody else can raise the cows. But the disturbance, when you go out with a blade, like I've switched 5 years ago to 100% no-till, and it's a lot harder planting corn no-till than it is soybeans. I think you probably all agree with me that there's some new challenges there. But to hit that soybean stubble with a digger, I think it's like one step forward and one step back type of a thing. And in my defense, just not doing any tillage at all, I think, is a huge benefit. And like you were saying, profitability-wise, you look at, it's crazy. The guys down at the Minnesota Ag Group in Northfield give me a hard time when I come in there because I got to introduce myself because I'm never down there anymore. I don't buy any parts like I used to. The oil stays cleaner, the air filters. You start thinking about some of that stuff when you change filters. You used to look at an air filter, you'd blow it out every morning when you're full-blown tillage. And now you can take it out after 200 hours, and you wonder, I'd look to see if the hoses were hooked up because there wasn't any dirt in it, and it's the small things, but they all add up to a different profitability in the end.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions from the audience? As I encourage you to think about this too, as we're going to see what our CI scores here. You're going to get a chance to, if you haven't run those yet, run them this afternoon. And it's an opportunity to say, look, maybe I'm not happy with it. Maybe I want to set myself up for this opportunity, get that score a little lower, add more value there. This is a great chance to, pick these guys' brains, whether you do it while they're on stage or whether you grab them afterwards. But, kind of think about what those questions you might have. She's right behind you. She's right behind you.
I got a bad habit of watching too much YouTube at night, and I kind of just use that to get back at my wife for making me watch The Bachelor. Anyway, we got a pretty good balance in our house there. You watch about the pollution and just the way the nutrients leave our farms. And we got a good panel up here. I'd like you guys to kind of expand on the biology and the soil structure and how when you do put nutrients on, even if you have tile drainage, how we're going to suspend that and keep the general public from having to tolerate the hypoxia zone and things like that. We're just not going to move nutrients off our acres if we can suspend it better in our soil structure, and our microbiology will break it down. So thanks for having the nerve to get up there, guys.
Well, I know I do sell seed along with that, and I actually had one hog producer tell me the using just cereal rye gained him 20 bushel an acre. And he's a pretty good sized producer. I think he has 7 barns. And over where I'm at, I think I can go out my door and look any direction and see hog confinement barns. So there's a lot. But he said, you know, right to the row. When he first started, he just tried a few acres, and even on corn, he said it was worth 20 bushel right there. And I'll believe him because we were fortunate enough to be invited down to Omaha, Nebraska a number of years ago, and they had 3 days. It was just too many speakers. You couldn't get to them all, and I and Nancy had split up, and one of them was on manure, and it was by Michigan State. And the first words out of their mouth, it said, if you're not using a cover crop with hog manure, we guarantee you're losing 40 to 60 units of nitrogen right off the bat, and probably closer to 60 and 80. Now, cereal rye is a great scavenger of nitrogen, and what it's doing is holding it up north towards that surface, because you knife in that hog manure in the fall, and you get a few rains, starts going down through the soil profile, then it freezes. And of course, you got the thaw, it starts going down a little more, and a couple more rains probably before you get the corn planted. So that corn never catches up with all of that. And talking about diversity, I and Nancy, we've had 1/3 corn, 1/3 soybeans, and 1/3 alfalfa up until 2 years ago. And that's great to have that, and that's how I actually got into the cover crops, because we could see for 4 to 5 years after the rotation out of alfalfa what it did for our soil. The only problem is, when you're 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, it takes 15 years to get that rotation all around, and I wanted to speed it up a little more with the cover crops. And I think anybody that's using them here will notice after the first year you'll see a little bit, second year it'll be a little more. By the third year, that's when you really start seeing a difference. And that's why some of our NRCS programs and everything is a 3-year cycle, so you really see the results of that. And I'd love to bring back in livestock, but Nancy told me if I bring cows in, she's having me committed. So that's kind of out the window. I'm doing it mainly plant-based now, and I do buy a little bit of manure when I can get it, but it's pretty well sewed up. And just for the heck of it, we had heard Mitch O'Hora up at our convention, of course, last December, and Nancy sent him last year's what we planted and what we used for fertilizer and everything, and talked to one of their people, and I said, well, Nancy has her farms and I have mine. She's got to be in on a decision, so we didn't do anything that day. And he said, well, just for the heck of it, I ran your numbers, what you had last year. He said your carbon score on your farm would be 2.4, and I probably could get it lower if I could get more manure.
That 40 acres I spoke of where I did, I'm sorry, were you?
Go ahead.
Okay. Where I spoke of earlier is in that Rice Creek project, so you guys have some of that